Democratic Senator Mark Kelly of Arizona joins me now in studio. Good to see you, Senator. Secretary Bessent said this shutdown could end if brave, moderate Democrats would stop this craziness.
Well, let me tell you how this can end. So just in less than a week, Americans are going to see their health care costs spike dramatically, going up 100, 200, 300%. They know that. The president knows that. He said he wanted to do something about this. But as far as I could tell, he's spent about 1 hour negotiating with Democrats on this issue. And now he's taken off on another trip overseas. I think I heard the Treasury Secretary also say that this was somehow about like the debt and deficit. But you got to remember, in the Trump's big legislation, they added $4 trillion to the debt in order to give a big tax cut for wealthy people like him and like the president and their wealthy friends on the backs of the American people and what their health care is going to cost. That's why these premiums have gone away. They didn't want it to be $6 trillion in debt. They wanted it to just be $4 trillion. So this is about the cost that people pay for their health care.
But look, this week, federal workers missed their first full paycheck. You've got federal workers going to food banks. The Democrats are dug in on this. But how long can you let this go when you see these things happening, when you see SNAP payments going away for nearly 1 million Arizonans?
We don't want to shut down. But let me tell you about an Arizonan. Let me tell you a story about a guy named Brent from Mesa. This guy worked in public safety for 34 years. He left that job. Now he's a substitute teacher. He gets his health care from the Affordable Care Act, from the exchange. He pays $339 a month. That's going to go up by $900. He'll be paying over $1,100 a month for him and his wife. He can't afford it. This guy has an autoimmune disease. He's got lupus. This isn't fair to him. And the millions of Americans like him, through no fault of their own, are now facing this huge spike in the costs of their health care.
So you're saying you are not budging?
We are fighting. We are fighting for the American people. We're fighting for the American people, and it's easily solved. The president says he wants to deal with the costs of people's health care. So why doesn't he get in the room with us and make Mike Johnson bring the Republican Congress back? What happened to those folks? They've been gone for over 6 weeks now on this extended summer vacation. He needs to get them back into Washington, get them in the room. We can have a serious discussion.
Scott Bessent said it wouldn't do any good because of the Democrats.
Well, he has no idea what he's talking about. It would do some good. If we could have a real negotiation about this, and with the president has spent 1 hour on this. How much time has he spent talking about his ballroom? His ballroom that he got all these folks, and they're going to probably get something out of it, to spend hundreds of millions of dollars on this room that almost every single American taxpayer will never go in that room.
Privately funded, I guess we should add. You voted against a Republican-sponsored bill that would have provided pay for some federal workers. Why?
Well, we had another proposal to pay federal workers. The problem with that is that legislation gave too much power to an OMB director, Russell Vought, that's already out of control, and firing people, furloughing people, ending government agencies. That legislation would give that individual more control. It was ridiculous.
Even if it would pay some federal workers?
We could have paid federal workers. We had legislation to do exactly that. Put it out there. It did not pass either. We're looking for unanimous consent. Republicans blocked it.
Okay, I want to talk about Venezuela. The Pentagon is now sending a carrier strike group, you know, the massive amount of firepower on a carrier strike group. What is your take on what is happening with these suspected drug boats? Is it legal?
It's questionable. And the White House and the Department of Defense could not give us a logical explanation on how this is legal. They were tying themselves in knots trying to explain this. We had a lot of questions for them, both Democrats and Republicans. It was not a good meeting. It did not go well. They have a secret list of 24 organizations that they have now authorized to use kinetic action against without the normal approach that we have for law enforcement. Hey, we don't want drugs in this country, especially fentanyl. But all these drugs, we should be working really hard to interdict them and prosecute the individuals that are smuggling drugs. not putting young service members
Isn't
at
that
great
something that we
legal
have
jeopardy.
been doing that maybe
We haven't
wasn't
been doing a
working
good
in a
enough
new
job.
approach? Do you
But
think
all the money that DHS currently has, put some of that money towards the Coast Guard to help them with the process of how do you interdict these drugs in the Caribbean. By the way, those boats in the Caribbean do not carry fentanyl. Those routes are not used to traffic fentanyl to the United States. So the whole story that this is about fentanyl that's killing people is false.
Have you seen evidence? Did they present evidence to you that these were drug boats? And if so, what kind of drugs were on them?
Yes.
Yes, you were presented evidence. You're
We
convinced.
We were presented some evidence that does not back up the story that the White House is telling to the American people.
And you mean just the fentanyl, but you believe there were drugs on those boats?
There were drugs on some of these boats, yes.
Just some of those boats. And he's not going to make a declaration
We have
of war.
evidence that there were drugs on some of these boats, but I don't want to get into the details of which boats, in which place, and what was found. That was in a secure, in a skiff, and some of that they want to keep. They want to keep that information away from the American people.
Understood. So he has threatened an attack on land. We have just a few seconds here. Do you think that'll happen, and will those carriers?
Well, I don't know. That's a question for the White House. You don't move a battle group all the way from where it was to the Caribbean unless you're planning on either to intimidate the country, which is rather intimidating, or you're going to start conducting combat operations in Venezuela. And this doesn't make the United States more safe. This makes us less safe. I mean, starting a war against Venezuela over what is a law enforcement action does not make any sense.
Okay, thanks for joining us this morning, Senator. Always great to see you.
Thank you.